We're here at the 4A's in New York. I'm Doug Zanger, North America editor for The Drum, and we just finished up the Big Messy, our first panel on sports and sports marketing. And I'd like you to introduce yourself because you were the star of the show.
Oh, I don't know. Thank you. I don't know about the star, but Doug, I really appreciate being here. It was a lot of fun. For those of you who don't know, which is probably everybody, I'm Brian Cristiano, the CEO of Bold Worldwide, a sports ad agency based here in New York.
And sponsors of our program. And one of the big questions that we threw in was related to bets. I guess sometimes I can err on the side of being a bit of a gambling man, but then again, brands and agencies and athletes, they have to be betting people as well. Yeah. So I want to go back to 2016. Which bets placed in 2016 do you think really paid off? Whether it relates to an athlete, whether it relates to a platform, anything as it relates to it, what paid off in 2016?
I think what paid off in 2016 were brands that really took advantage of Facebook video. I think that's a huge one, and I mean regular video as well as Facebook Live. I think there are huge dividends paid to the brands and teams that did it and did it right. On the flip side of that, I think it was good that the NFL tried Twitter, but I think that brands probably thought it would be more successful than it was. So the NFL didn't do as well. It wasn't bad, but it didn't do as well as they intended. And I think a lot of other brands found the same as Twitter's kind of downtrending, trying to make things work. I think it's better to be on the upside of that curve, which is Facebook, which is Instagram. Even Snapchat, I thought was a good bet.
Let's go back to the not so great, maybe some other 2016 bets that didn't necessarily pan out.
I think that there was a lot of hope that, you know, traditional media, especially if we're talking about sports, right? TV, like, oh, it's not DVRable. But the reality is, I think we're finding out that A, it is, and B, even if it's not, people's attention are going to their phones or they're walking away during commercial breaks. So I think the brands and the agencies that just kind of bet all in this last year of, okay, well, we'll just buy sports TV breaks. Not that they lost entirely, but they did not get as much upside as they thought they would. And I think we're seeing that right now with the NFL and the ratings going down, with ESPN losing 600,000 subscribers in 1 month. The shift is happening, but I think that there's still a lot of bucking of the trend.
2017, what are the big bets to make? Where are the bets to be made? And what specifically do those bets mean?
I go back to Facebook video because I think it's still early, believe it or not. I think people feel like Facebook, it's so old.
No, I think it's early. No, I agree.
It's early. I think Facebook is early. Facebook video, especially Facebook Live, because I think Zuckerberg is still figuring out how exactly to make that work. So I think brands that are willing to place bets there will win in the short term, but also potentially in the long term while they build their awareness of like, yes, we're going to this platform. Yes, we're broadcasting here. Or we're creating content that lives here. I think that's a big upside. I think 360 video is a big upside. I think it's super early. Like this is super, super niche. I'm not saying go and just do 360 video, but I think incrementally to other things that are happening, if you have the content, if you have the access, especially sports, 360 video can be big.
VR is the topic on everybody's mind. What's that going to look like in 2017, you think?
I think it's still growing. I think it's a slow growth. I mean, I've been talking about it for the last year, and we've seen so many things change with VR, 360 video. It is difficult when you say, okay, you have to put a piece of hardware on your face to look at it properly. It's difficult. So I think there's going to be a blend between, okay, the people who are super serious about it, probably gamers, esports, because they're playing in an environment where hardware is not a weird thing. So I think there's a lot of upside there for VR. It's going to be super niche, but I think you can also figure out ways to do it like on Facebook or YouTube, where you can use your cell phone as the viewport to this content. So it doesn't just have to be the hardware on your face.
What's a bet that brands or agencies or franchises across the board, what's a bet they shouldn't place in 20? They should not place.
I would say that as much as I love Snapchat, I don't think going all in on Snapchat is the right time for for sports and for brands trying to reach the sports audience. I think there's a lot of growth, and I think they need to be there. But I think there's a lot of other channels that have more upside, like Facebook, for example, and even just brand integration into live sports. Like being there on the field, finding ways to integrate the players with the teams, with the brands, has way more upside than I think like a Snapchat specifically. Again, I'm not saying it's bad, but I think there's going to be big bets made on it in 2017 that don't quite pan out as well as they would have hoped.
What about emerging platforms? Because we're talking a lot about these big incumbents now, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Are there any players that are bubbling up that people will be hearing about in 2017?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I think there's always some platform. Like, there's always some new thing.
There's always a thing.
App. There's always somebody that's trying something. But I think that the challenge is being early, but not being too early. Because regardless of what the new app or, you know, the shiny new object, which I hate that term because people use it with me when I talk about 360 video. Right. But I think that you have to leverage what is growing and proven to work. I don't think it's bad to test and to dabble in some of the newer things. Like, that's why I think 360 video, it's scratching the surface. It's super new. It's going to be a real long time until that's, I don't even know if it'll make it full mainstream, if you want to consider that, but I think it's proven that there's enough people watching it and paying attention to where it works, given the right terms.
Right.
So I would say that there's nothing to me right now from an app perspective or a platform perspective where I'm like, this is the next new thing. I think it's too early. I think there's going to be something next. Of course there will be. But what is it? I don't know. I mean, we'll probably start to see some stuff in 2017.
It'd be interesting to see if Facebook buys it, Google buys it.
Twitter or something else.
Is Twitter going to exist in 20? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the death of Vine was I think something nobody saw coming. Not that no one saw it coming, but did you really think that they were going to kill Vine? Like, wouldn't you think they would just kind of let it breathe until, you know?
Sometimes you just got to put things out of its misery.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that brings up an interesting thing. If we're talking about making bets, don't go all in on one platform. How many influencers made a lot of money that were just Vine influencers and now are left with nothing to do? They got to scramble and go somewhere else. So that's why you have to be everywhere. Don't make one bet on one thing.
Brian, appreciate your support and appreciate the time here today.
Doug, pleasure, man.
Cool, man.